To the tiny alien woman cowering in the corner of her shattered escape pod, the towering human looked like a monster carved from myth, bigger than her warlords, louder than her storms, and hungrier than her nightmares. And when he licked his lips and stepped forward, all she could whisper was, "Please don't eat me, human." The human paused mid-step. What? He blinked. The moment froze. She was no more than 2 feet tall, her skin a soft opalescent silver that shimmered with terror. Her huge violet eyes were locked on him as she trembled behind a chunk of burnt metal plating. 2 antennae twitched, like panicked whiskers. A strange collar blinked red around her neck. Some kind of translator? Or maybe a survival device? Dax Holter dropped his rifle and raised his hands in surrender. "I'm not gonna eat you, I swear." Her pupils dilated. He took a cautious step back. She didn't move. "Okay," he exhaled, kneeling slowly and pulling out a ration bar. "Here, see? Real food. Chocolate almond. Not aliens." The tiny woman flinched. Still, her translator clicked and buzzed. She hissed a response in her native tongue, and the collar rendered it in a panicked whisper. "Humans devour," Skarn told us. "You roast us over fire." Dax winced. Damn Skarn. The Skarn were one of the many species who'd spread propaganda about humans since Earth joined the Galactic Coalition. Because when humanity arrived in deep space, they didn't bring incense and handshakes. They brought ships, tech, and steel nerves. Earth's wars had forged them into hardened explorers, misunderstood as aggressive, feared for being fast learners, problem solvers, survivors. Dax had been a combat engineer once. Now he was a solo scavenger, mapping ancient wrecks on uncharted moons. This one, Naltros 4, had been quiet, until something crashed out of the sky like a meteor and made his scanner scream. That meteor turned out to be her, and now she thought he was going to eat her. He sat down, cross-legged, and unwrapped the ration bar. "Look," he said, exaggerating every motion like he was acting for a toddler. "I'm gonna eat this. Me, not you." She watched, tense as a wire. When he bit into it, chewed and smiled, her antennae perked up. Then, slowly, she crept out from behind the panel. Her hair was long and starlight blue, flowing around her tiny body like a cape. She wore a shredded diplomatic uniform that barely held together. When she reached him, she crouched low and sniffed the bar like a nervous animal. Dax held it out. She bit. Her eyes widened. The translator chirped, "This is na sweet, crunchy delight, like tree fruit bark from Luxus 6. He smiled. "Glad you like it. You are not eating me." "Nope, not even a nibble." She blinked rapidly. "You're kind?" "Sometimes." She hesitated. Then she placed a tiny hand on her chest and declared, "I am Lyrene of the Zarili, Princess of the Whispering Nebula." Dax blinked. "Princess?" Lyrene nodded. Proud. Regal, even at 2 feet tall. "I escaped before the invasion. Our fleet was ambushed by the Skarn and scattered. My pod took a hit. My ship is gone." She turned away, eyes glistening. Dax saw the pain on her face, the loss, the fear, the heartbreak. Lyrene, princess of a scattered people. Alone, just like him. He stood, offering her a hand. "We'll get you off this rock, Princess Lyrene." Her delicate fingers wrapped around. His thumb like a child's grip. But her eyes glowed with new resolve. She stepped beside him. She stood tall, well, as tall as 2 feet would get her, and asked, "What do I call you, giant human?" He chuckled. "Dax Holter, engineer, rogue." "Not a man-eater," Lyrene smiled, finally softly. But then the mountains groaned in the distance. Something else had crashed nearby, something not human. Dax grabbed his rifle. Lyrene ducked behind his boot. Whatever had followed her escape pod, it was coming, and it might just eat both of them. The screech tore through the valley like a blade made of sound. Lyrene froze against Dax's boot, her silver skin shimmering faintly with bioluminescent fear. The translator buzzed at her throat. Skarn warhounds. They followed my scent. They devour everything, Dax cursed under his breath. Of course they did. The Skarn weren't just space pirates. They were trackers. They could follow radiation trails, biosignatures, even interstellar pheromones. And if they were using warhounds, then this wasn't a simple hunt. This was extermination. He flipped his rifle's selector to pulse burst, slammed a fresh energy cartridge in place, and scanned the ridge ahead. Lyrene tugged his sleeve. You'll be killed. Dax didn't look away from his scope. I've been in worse situations. One time, I had to fight a Zarnian buzzbeast while my arm was dislocated and my ship was on fire. Lyrene's eyes went wide. You survived? I cooked the buzzbeast. Her jaw dropped. I thought you said humans don't eat people. He smirked. Buzzbeasts aren't people. From the ridge, 2 Skarn warhounds emerged, beasts the size of hover trucks, all serrated plating, glowing eyes, and claws that cut through solid rock like snow. Dax crouched. They'll sniff us out in seconds. We need a distraction. Lyrene reached behind her belt and pulled out a small orb. Stasis bomb. Not powerful, but enough for 6 seconds of frozen time. That'll do. He turned to her, serious now. Once I draw them, throw it when they get close. Then run. Find the beacon I dropped outside your pod. Hit the red button. That'll call my ship. She nodded, but her lip trembled. You'll die, he winked. Not today. Before she could protest, Dax leapt over the ridge and fired. The pulse blast slammed into the first warhound's face, lighting it up in blue fire. It roared, stumbled, and then both of them turned toward him. With seething rage, Lyrene watched in terror as the human charged forward, yelling, dodging, and firing like a man possessed. His body moved with practiced grace. He ducked a swipe, slid under a second, and landed a plasma shot between one beast's armor plates. Boom! One down, but the other leaped, right on top of him. Lyrene screamed. Now! He shouted. She hurled the stasis bomb. Zzz. Time froze. The second warhound, mid-pounce, turned into a motionless sculpture in midair, jaws wide open. Dax rolled free and sprinted toward her. Move! They ran. Behind them, the stasis bomb fizzled out, and the creature roared back into motion, crashing into the ground in confusion. They reached the beacon. Dax hit the button. Far above, the clouds shimmered, and a sleek black craft decloaked, engines screaming. His ship. She was beautiful, sleek, fast, human-built, and patched with mismatched plates. A true scavenger's bird. The hatch dropped. Dax scooped Lyrene up in one motion, cradling her like a kitten, and dove inside. The ship lifted off just as the warhound leapt again, its claws raking the air just beneath their hull. They were airborne, safe, for now. Lyrene sat on the padded co-pilot's seat, still trembling. Her hands clutched the seatbelt like it was the only thing anchoring her to the galaxy. Dax tossed her a bottle of water. You okay? She nodded slowly. I did not expect you to save me. Why not? You're human, Dax. Gave her a look. Right, and humans are monsters. Her antennae drooped. I'm sorry, that's what they told us. He softened. We're not all heroes, but we're not all monsters either. Lyrene's eyes met his, so big, so vulnerable. You ran into death. For me. He chuckled. That's what we do. We see someone afraid, alone. We try to fix it. Her cheeks flushed faintly violet. Thank you. You're welcome, Princess. Then she smiled. A real smile, and Dax Holter, battle-hardened scavenger, survivor of wars, pilot of a rust-bucket ship, felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. But peace didn't last long. Lyrene's collar beeped. She gasped. Oh no. What? She tapped the collar. A holographic projection appeared in the air between them, blurry, fragmented, but clear enough. A Skarn warlord, face scarred and grinning. Zarili Princess Lyrene, we tracked your pod. You are not alone. We found your people, and we will devour them, one by one. Starting now, the message ended. Silence. Lyrene's eyes filled with tears. They found my people, the survivors, the children, my sister. Dax looked at her, then at the controls. He flipped a switch, and the ship turned toward deep space. Lyrene blinked. Where are we going? He stood up, shoulders squared, voice firm. To get your people back. The stars streaked past as Dax's ship, the Lancer, hurtled into the void, heading straight toward the most dangerous region of the Skarn occupation zone. Lyrene sat curled in the co-pilot's chair, her arms wrapped around her knees. The silence of the stars made her feel small, even smaller than she already was. But in that same silence, she kept stealing glances at the human piloting the ship with calm, practiced precision. She had never met anyone like Dax Holter. In her culture, humans were myths, giant, violent, unpredictable. But this one, he'd run into death for her. Given her food, shelter, even his trust, and now he was risking his life to rescue people he'd never met. Why? She didn't understand it. Not yet. ETA, 23 minutes, Dax muttered, fingers dancing across the console. Skarn cruisers, in orbit over Rulvox 9. If your people landed there, they're either hiding or captured. Lyrene leaned forward. Captured means, I know, he said quietly. The hum of the engines filled the room. Outside, the stars looked like frozen tears. Lyrene turned toward him. You could have left me. Dax raised an eyebrow. You're royalty, a princess. I'm small, she said with a dry laugh. Not exactly a battlefield asset. You're brave, loyal, and you threw that stasis bomb like a pro. Lyrene blinked, a strange warmth creeping up her neck. Her voice dropped. You really think so? I know so. Silence lingered. Then she spoke again, softer. Back home. I was betrothed to a noble. It was arranged. Duty. Tradition. And you didn't love him. No. He looked at me like I was a symbol, not a person. Dax didn't answer right away. Then he said, Well, I look at you and see a person. Lyrene's heart skipped. Their eyes met. Something flickered there, between two beings from opposite ends of the galaxy. Something that neither translator, nor science, nor history could explain. But the moment ended as alarms blared. Skarn patrol ship dead ahead, Dax growled, slamming the throttle down. They spotted us. The stars twisted violently. Laser blasts zipped past the hull. The ship rocked hard. Lyrene tumbled from her seat. Dax caught her just in time. He scooped her into his lap and buckled her into his harness. Hold on! Lyrene clung to him, her face buried in his chest, her voice shaking. I don't want to die in your arms. Then don't, he said. Live in them instead. She gasped, but he was already diving the ship hard, flipping it beneath a frozen asteroid belt. The enemy cruiser followed. But Dax was fast. He skimmed the rocks like a dragonfly across water, flipping switches, rerouting shields, barking commands. Into his AI, Lyrene, still pressed against him, could feel the wild beat of his heart. Not fear, adrenaline, passion, and somehow she felt safer than she ever had before. Dax jerked the ship upward, right into a cratered moon's shadow. The enemy ship missed the turn, crashed hard into an asteroid. Boom, Lyrene blinked. You did. He smirked. Told you, not today. They arrived at Rulvox 9 under cloak mode. The scanners picked up weak Zarili signals in a collapsed mining colony. Bingo, Dax muttered. They landed silently. Dax geared up. Stealth armor, EMP grenades, plasma knives. He offered a miniature version of a shock blade to Lyrene. I can't fight, she said. Not yet, he answered. She took it anyway. They moved through the ruins together, him sweeping. Corners, her sensing subtle vibrations through her antennae. Lorene spotted tripwires. Dax disabled them. They moved like a team. Then they found the prisoners. A large pit. Energy netting. Dozens of tiny Zerilli, elders, children, a few wounded. Gods. A Skarn warrior stood guard, lazily drinking some kind of glowing fluid. Dax whispered, "One guard." Lorene nodded. "More will come soon." He handed her the detonator. "You free them. I'll handle him." Before she could argue, he was already moving, like a shadow, silent, swift. The guard noticed too late. Dax slammed into him, blade flashing. Lorene watched, heart pounding. Dax fought like fire, unpredictable, consuming. The guard was twice his size, but it didn't matter. Dax won. He always did. She rushed to the prisoners, deactivated the netting. They stared in shock. "Princess." "Lorene," she knelt. "You're safe now. This human, he saved me. And he's here to save you." Gasps, hope, tears, but no time. More Skarn were coming. Dax radioed in. "Too many incoming. Get them to the ship. I'll hold the line." Lorene looked at him, wide-eyed. "You'll die." He smiled softly. "Not today." She grabbed his hand. "Don't say it like it's a joke." He looked at her for a long, quiet moment. Then he kissed her forehead, gentle, real. "Go." Lorene's chest ached, but she obeyed as she led her. People away, she turned back once, just in time to see Dax, alone, facing down a dozen Skarn warriors, standing tall, fighting for a people who weren't his, for a princess who wasn't his, yet. The ruins of Rulvox 9 echoed with the clash of plasma and bone. Dax Holter stood alone, just beyond the prisoner pit, facing a Skarn strike team twice the size he'd expected. 12 armored warriors, snarling and hissing, encircled him with crude cannons and jagged blades. Skarn never cared for elegance. They only knew destruction. His suit's shield meter blinked 46%. Not enough. But he wasn't fighting for survival. He was fighting for her. "Just a human," one of the Skarn sneered. "You'll make a fine corpse." Dax spun his plasma rifle and fired in one motion. Boom. The closest Skarn dropped. The rest charged. He ducked a swing, flipped the rifle into one's gut, yanked the trigger, and spun to blast another through the neck. Sparks rained down like fireflies. 5% shields. He danced between them, but they were closing in fast. A plasma bolt caught his shoulder. He roared in pain, but powered through, slamming a shock blade through a Skarn's chest and kicking off its twitching body. Meanwhile, Lorene led the last of her people to the Lancer's open hatch. The children ran. First, then the wounded, then the elders. She turned to follow, but stopped. She looked back. The valley behind her burned with green Skarn fire. And Dax was still there, fighting alone, bleeding. "Princess, we must go," cried her former advisor. But Lorene clenched. Her tiny fists. "No, I'm going back." "Lorene, he saved us. I won't leave him to die alone." She grabbed her shock blade, stole one of Dax's spare blasters from the hatch, and sprinted into the fire. Back at the battlefield, Dax dropped to one knee. He was panting now, limbs heavy, eyes burning with sweat and blood. 3 Skarn left. He could maybe take one. Maybe, as one raised its axe. Zap! The Skarn's arm exploded in a puff of sparks and bone. Dax blinked. Lorene stood at the ridge, tiny as ever, shock blade in one hand, blaster in the other. She was shaking, but she didn't run. She charged. "Leave him alone," she screamed. One Skarn laughed and swung. She slid under its legs, spun, and jammed the blade into the back of its knee. Dax caught the opening and shot it through the chest, down to 2. The next lunged at her. Dax tackled it mid-air, rolled, and threw it into the wall with a bone-cracking crash. He grabbed her and pulled her close, eyes wild. You came back, she looked up at him, trembling, tears at the edge of her glowing silver eyes. You didn't leave me behind. I won't leave you either. His breath caught. He cupped her face, fingers brushing her smooth skin. You're insane, you know that. I learned from a human. The last Skarn charged. Together, Dax and Loreen fired. Twin shots, one heart. The blast ripped through the monster's chest. It fell with a final screech, lifeless. Then there was only silence and smoke. Dax collapsed to his knees. Loreen rushed to him. Dax! He grinned through the pain. Hey, I'm still pretty. You're hurt. Just bruises and burns. Nothing a nap and some space whiskey won't fix. She looked at him like he was the most impossible, beautiful, maddening creature in the galaxy. I thought you were going to die. He blinked, then whispered, I thought I was too. But I wasn't scared. She frowned. Why? Because you came back for me. They sat there in the quiet ruins as the sun of Rulvox 9 rose, pink and gold over the battlefield. Loreen leaned her tiny body into his chest. Dax wrapped an arm around her, wincing but smiling. This is going to sound crazy. What? I think I'm falling for you. She blinked up at him. Really? You're tiny, weird, kind of bossy, and you saved my life. What's not to love? Loreen laughed, giggled even. Then she climbed onto his lap, placed a hand on his cheek and whispered, I thought humans were monsters, but you're my miracle. Their lips met, his, rough and warm, hers, soft and shimmering. And in that moment, alien and human didn't matter, only heart did. The others soon returned and helped Dax to the ship. The Zarili elders bowed before him, grateful. Children cheered. Even Loreen's stiff old advisor shook his hand with wide, blinking eyes. Later, in the ship's medbay, Loreen sat beside his bed, holding his hand as he drifted into sleep. Rest, Dax Holter, she whispered. My warrior, my human. Dax stood on the balcony of the Royal Zarili Citadel, freshly showered, sore in every muscle, but very much alive. Below him stretched a sea of lights, thousands of glowing bulbs from every Zarili district, a celebration like none before. The people danced, sang, and tossed petals in the air. He adjusted the ceremonial sash Loreen had forced him to wear, deep violet embroidered with silver stars, and tried to look dignified. Tried. Still don't like the outfit? A familiar voice teased. He turned. There she was, Loreen, floating just above the floor in her formal robes, which sparkled like stardust. Her silver eyes met his with warmth. And fire. I'd rather be back in the jungle with a plasma rifle. Dax grunted, loosening the collar. You said that yesterday. And the day before. And during breakfast. And I'll say it again if this thing keeps choking me. She laughed and drifted closer, wrapping her tiny arms around his waist. Your people adore you, Dax. You liberated an entire royal house. The first human ever allowed inside our capital, let alone our hearts. He brushed a strand of glowing hair from her face. I didn't do it for them. I know. Her cheeks flushed. They stood in silence, wrapped in each other. The wind carried music up from the courtyard. Loreen looked out, her voice distant. After the war, I always thought I'd feel lost, like I had no place. You have one now, Dax said softly. With me. She looked back at him. Will the galaxy ever accept it? A Zarili royal? With a human mercenary? Dax smiled. Let them try to stop us. Later that night, in the Grand Hall, Loreen stood before the Senate of her people. She wore the battle scar from Rulvox 9 with pride, a tiny cut across her cheek she'd refused to heal. Dax stood behind her, armored, clean, and sharp-eyed. The room buzzed with tension. Members of the Senate, Loreen began, her voice strong. We face a new dawn, not just for Zarili, but for the entire galaxy. She stepped aside and gestured to Dax. This human saved me. Not because I am royalty, not because I am Zarili, but because it was right. Murmurs. She raised her voice. I once feared humans. I thought them monsters. But I learned they are protectors, warriors, lovers, friends. Now silence. She turned toward Dax, reached up, and took his hand. The room gasped. My people, I love him. Dax blinked. Lorene smiled at him. Yes, I said it. I love a human. And if we want peace, if we truly want to survive what's coming, next, we must embrace those we fear. We must trust. We must hope. A long pause. Then, one by one, Zarili elders stood, bowed, and saluted the human. Weeks later, Dax and Lorene stood atop the shipyard platform, overseeing a new joint fleet, Zarili and human. A banner above read, The Unity Initiative, A Future Together. Lorene leaned against his chest. We have a lot of work ahead. Always, he said. But as long as you're beside me. She looked up at him, eyes sparkling. Always. That night, under twin moons, he kissed her again. Not as a mercenary, not as a savior, but as a partner and a promise. The end. If you loved Dax and Lorene's journey, share this story with fellow sci-fi romantics and tell us, would you risk it all for a love from another world? Comment your favorite moment and stay tuned for the next epic HFY romance battle saga.